Hi, it's Dawn from Dawn's Dirt. Dirt can mean gardening, dirt can mean religion, dirt can mean animals, dirt can mean chickens, dirt can mean politics, dirt can mean anything it needs to mean. And so, welcome to this episode today. I'm really excited about it. I've got Pete from my former farm, Shirley's greenhouse. And so, Pete's on the show today. Really looking forward to this episode. We've probably got a lot to talk about, and it could even be a little emotional for both of us, and it could be really insightful into farming, agriculture, and the greenhouse industry. And so, welcome here to the show today, Pete. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course, Don, and thanks for having me here. So as you mentioned, my name is Pete. My real name is Prashant, but I go by Pete for many years. So we are the new owners, as you mentioned, and my wife, myself, my 3 kids. So we're all living on the farm, and my parents are also here. We all work here on the farm, every single day. We haven't taken a day off, never since we took it over from Utah, from January 10th. No Saturdays, no Sundays, no weekends, no holidays, no vacation, absolutely nothing. There's no time, and honestly speaking, there is no money to do anything. There's no luxury, right? So I can tell a bit about my journey, how I got here. Maybe that would be a good point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, tell us your story. Because I put my farm up for sale just over a year ago, and then you were the purchaser, and you bought the farm, and you bought it as a going concern, and you're carrying on my mother's name, Shirley's Greenhouse, and yeah, and I'm really excited for you, and I've been trying to help you the best I can. But
Yeah.
yeah, tell us how you why would you even want to get into farming? How did that even come about?
So so let's go back to where I was born, right? So back in India, right? So I come from an agricultural province, which is it was, I would call it more like Ukraine was to USSR, you know. So that is the granary of India. So basically, one small province that supplies more than 80%, 90% of grains to entire India, right? So my family was associated with agriculture from way back, you know. And then by the time I think when I was like 6 or 7 years old, we had primarily lost every single land that we had, you know, losses, family troubles and all. And then the last patch of land that we had was an industrial property. So we lost that by I think 1999, you know. So yeah, so the association goes back to actual farming. I never did actual farming, but our family was engaged in manufacturing of agricultural implements, you know. So more threshers. They used to be the precursors of combines. So when the combines came, the threshers went out of like you know uh, uh, out of the picture, right? They became obsolete. And then centrifugal pumps, shaft cutters, some small other implements, So all those things, right? So there was always an association with the agricultural people, farmers, and then so there was. So I grew up hearing stories about how we had our own land. So there was a very deep desire, to own a piece of land in anywhere, And Canada is a great country, allows people to be who they want to be, you know. So uh, nobody has to go by my last name or what my forefathers did to see what I have to do here, It's my own journey. My my wife, myself, we're all supporting each other, right? And then my kids as well. And then so I came to Canada in 2011. And before that, I did my master's in science in mechanical engineering in US. Okay, so when I came here, I whatever job I could get into by default, I went into it. So the last job that I had was a decently paying job. It was in capital markets. I was working as a business analyst, which is not IT but kind of IT. Okay, I'm not a coder. I can, yeah, I do other things, but I'm not a coding person. Anyways, so the job really paid well. I whatever savings I had from last I would say 2 decades, I invested all of it here. So So there's no option B for me, you know. So there's a desire to own, uh, be go back to basics, something that is more meaningful. The job that I did was very meaningful. I did my best, you know, and I worked for the province of Alberta as well, you know, for the pension fund. Um, and then yeah, so I think I did my job well, but this is actually more rewarding, not money wise, but emotionally, you know, and then you feel part of something that is big, right? So keeping keeping good food on the table for ourselves, you know, for our neighbors. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but believe me, if worse come to worse, okay, I have a piece of land, I can feed myself, and I can probably feed like 100, 200, I don't know, 500 other families. You know what I mean?
Do you remember the toilet paper wars of 2020? Are you worried about being prepared in an emergency? Are you tired of being a slave to the corporations we purchase from? It's time to take control. Become ungovernable. Take your food system into your own hands. Hi, I'm Dawn, a coach dedicated to helping you live like grandma used to. Self-reliant, resourceful, and prepared. Whether it's raising chickens, growing a garden, canning your own food, or even milking a cow, I'll teach you how to thrive and survive in the space you have, big or small. We can even potentially make some money off your homestead. Visit Dawn's Dirt today to book your free jumpstart call. Together, as a team, we can get you self-reliant and ungovernable. We, the people, have the power to take back control. Remember, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Let's build a better future and a community, one skill set at a time. I absolutely understand what you mean, that maybe financially, like, there's big dollars in and big dollars out, and it's farming, it's agriculture, that's the way it is, but it's more than that. It's just who you are, and the feeding of the people. And that's the part that I miss about most about my farm, my former farm, was shaking the hands of the people that I fed, and the babies and the families. And I mean, you're talking to all of my former customers now, and so you're hearing where my family's been. And a lot of my customers have been with me for many, many years. They heard of Shirley's greenhouse back when it was in Calgary, in the grocery stores, in the warehouses. There's so much history to that name, Shirley's greenhouse. And yeah, so you're carrying it on for my family, and I appreciate that. Um, yeah. So how has that been? You've been going to farmers markets, you're growing the food. You've mentioned it's been very stressful. So let's talk about the stressful part in a moment here. But how has the positive, how has shaking the hands of the customers and meeting the people that you're feeding, how has that been for you?
Okay, so again, going back a little bit into my past. So I was never a people person. At least I do not consider myself. Even when I came to see you and Connie at the farm, like that was the first thing I mentioned. Like, I don't think I can do this. I cannot go to markets. I cannot be in front of people. Okay, so back in in my previous like career as a ship's engineer, I was on the ship, right, just working by myself, and with a couple of other colleagues, um, not even talking. And then in my previous profession, as a business analyst, I was sitting behind a screen, right? Talking to people sometimes, but when there's a need to actually speak with people, right? Not going out of way. I'm not an extrovert. Neither is my wife actually. So, very first thing that happened to me, positive way, John, was going there, getting out of my shell, greeting people, offering those, the best tomatoes of Shirley's, that you grew, that we are growing the same way, and then just asking people to sample them. But believe me, just going there with a bag of open tomatoes and offering to somebody, that was a big thing for me. Maybe it doesn't come across to you like that, but it opened entire new world for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've met you many times now. And yeah, I'm an extreme extrovert, because I would stand at the markets and say, I was the farmer, I'm the farmer, I grew these tomatoes. Would you like to try my tomatoes? I would even go so far as to say, would you like to feel my peppers? They're very firm. And people would laugh and giggle and joke and whatever. I'm a bit of a character. And so, but yeah, I've met you, and you are very smart, you're very intelligent, you're very handy. You can fix things on that farm better. You're fixing things on that farm, honestly, better than I could and better than I did.
So there got to be something I'm better than you. You know, I'm not better than you, like, every other aspect, like selling, growing, talking to people, social media, right? Like, I don't know those things. Like, I'm scared of social media. I'm scared to put myself out there.
Yeah, uh, thank you. You're very flattering. And you know what? Like, you are exactly what that farm needed. So my farm was, there was lots of things that needed to be fixed, and you're the person that's doing it. Like you are the exact person. And there's got to be something with timing. There's got to be something bigger in the universe with God, with something, there has to be a reason for this. And I think the land, because you were talking about the land earlier. I think that land that I was on I was so tired and burnt out by the time I was done. I had done it for 20 years. I was working, you were mentioning working 7 days a week, no days off. I was doing that too. And I did it for years and years. And I loved it and I thrived on it, but I was burnt out. I was tired. I was even towards the end of my career, I was even losing my speech again, like I had done earlier in my career. And so, yeah, when I hear you talk, and every time I meet with you, I see what's going on and I hear what's going on, and I just want to help you to the best of my abilities, right? Like,
You
you
already
have so much. Thank you. You have so much skill and you have so much talent. And so, yeah, I want to see that farm continue on and to continue to thrive. And that's my goal and that's my hope and that's my dream for that farm and for that piece of property and the land that you've put your roots down on, which was your dream. So you're into it. You've met the customers, you're out of your shell. You're going into it. You've taken on the greenhouse. How has this, so you're at 1 full year into it. How was last year for you? How did that go for you?
it was good. Let me start with the positive note. And before even I go there, let me say, the very first time I went to the very first market that we had, which was Hillhurst Market. You know, I think the market manager is one of the best market managers for that market. The very first time my wife and I hauled all of our produce to go to the market, the respect I gained about you, it increased manifold. Okay, there's so much work into it. You know, um, I used to think I was working hard in my previous jobs. You know, so one thing that I learned was farming is very tough, makes you tough. And it's a ton of hard work if you're doing it properly. If you're not, and we are not, we're not buying produce from a wholesaler and like a big box store or anywhere else. So there's that part. There's authenticity. You know what I mean?
You're growing the produce.
Yeah.
You are putting your blood, sweat, and tears into growing the food and bringing that food to a farmer's market. And that is hard, hard, hard work. I know that. Okay,
You know.
carry on with your
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, so learning something about yourself. You're actually capable of working that much hard. You know, that wasn't news to me. I never knew I could work that hard, physically and mentally. You know, so answering emails, social media, forget about it. I don't even today. I don't know my Instagram handle. You asked me, I said I don't know. So. But answering emails, remaining on top of them, remaining on top of whatever is happening at the farm, watering, irrigation, fertilizers, pest control, you know, we had a 60 or 70% loss in my field because I was not on top of the weeds, right? But anyways, so so those are good things that I learned about ourselves. That my wife's kid is also same like me, right? She's working hard as well. Kids, they went to the markets. Mom and dad, they were weeding, they were pruning or whatever, right? And then I had to send two of my Mexican workers home last year, just because I could not afford them. This year I delayed the arrival of Mexican workers because of the, I call it huge financial loss that we made last year. I don't have anybody here, even today. So you came down on Sunday, right? Not this Sunday, but the previous Sunday, right? Or Saturday, I forgot.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
very next day, and you were still under surgery, you just had gotten out of surgery. They still haven't finished the stringing yet. So peppers are pending. Tomatoes will be done, I think, today. Cucumbers are done. But peppers, they're still standing firm, but they're growing very fast. But we're gonna string. What I'm saying is yeah. So we made some loss last year. We hope not to repeat that. I had a cushion last year. This year I don't. You know. Last year, like until June 30th, I had a job. This year, I'm looking for a job so I can sustain myself. But like, there's no promise with all this that's happening around, tariffs and everything. Um, the markets are nervous. There's not much hiring going on. I'm still looking. I'm still trying. If that happens, like maybe it's easier. Maybe there will be some inefficiencies on the farm because I'm not supervising like to that level of detail. Um, but yeah, we'll see what happens. And last year, like again, like we went through a very steep learning curve. Don, you are of immense help. To be honest and like to give the credit where it's due. Like even your ex cam, sometimes he came over, like helped with the boiler, helped with the cucumber wrapping machine. That was good. Your mom came. That was like a huge, huge. I would say moral support. You know. So remember, like
Yes.
even before we went to any single market, I asked your mom, like, can we actually use your name? Can we continue using your name? And she gave her blessing. That is when we started it. So sometimes people come and joke about it, like, you don't look like Shirley, And we say, like, no, I'm not Shirley, and like, we're the new owners, but we're keeping every single thing the same. No synthetic pesticides, biological controls, good pests, good insects that eat bad insects, Um, so
Yeah.
very very rewarding, like in terms of like emotions, getting connected to so many people. I think I gained so many people, so many friends, that were previously your friends, and now many of them are my friends too, like my wife's friends too, my daughters, my sons, right? And
Absolutely. It's going to the farmers markets. It's about the relationship and the relationship that you built. So it's even bigger than just the farm. The farm is really important, but when you direct market everything to the customer, you build relationship. You build, that connection. It's a community. And yeah, customers were really sad when I said that I was selling the farm, but they have, it sounds like they have just picked right up in that relationship portion with you and your family. And I find that beautiful. That's what we need more of in society. I feel like is we need more of those relationships, shaking the hand that feeds you. And you're speaking a little bit about my mother, and yeah, my mother, she has given you her blessing. She wants to see you thrive. And I'll tell you a little story about her. She went to a market, and she was talking to your staff, and she was telling your staff kind of, you should do this and you should do that. And my mom was just being my mom, being Shirley,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
yeah, she wants to see you thrive and succeed just as I do. I want to see you, and that's why I have you on the show today. I want to talk about the hardships in farming. You're a brand new farmer, trying to get into it. You've got strengths and you've got weaknesses, and yeah, I want to encourage you, and I want your customers and I want our listeners to hear this, to say, I am your biggest supporter. Like, I want to see you thrive in your new venture here. And back to the whole thing about, you got the cucumbers done and you got the tomatoes done. I'll tell you a little secret about when I had the farm. There was times that we had the peppers too, and you did the peppers last. So you did what I told you to
that's
do.
perfect.
And I'll tell you what, don't feel bad, because I had peppers falling over a couple of times. So you're just right on spot. It's tough. Farming is hard, and that's what people need to hear. Is farming is hard. Buying and selling produce is easy. Repackaging it, taking out of one package and putting
Yeah,
it in another package
very
is
easy.
easy. But when you are growing in the soil, or your hydroponics, but in the soil, doing the work, grunting it out day after day, like, if you make one wrong move, your tomatoes are dead. Like, then you don't have a crop to sell. And so yeah, I just want people to know how hard it is. Like, it is hard. Farming is hard, and you are brand new at it. You bit off more than you can chew. And you know what? I'm very proud of you for biting it off and chewing it and making yourself swallow it. Like, I've seen you work and I've seen your stress load. And yeah, how has your stress been? How has farming and stress, how do those two things go together?
So Don, like I paid like the bank, right, FCC, like huge amount of money, right, just out of pocket, right. Believe me, like this is very stressful. I couldn't sleep, many nights after that. You know, and then there were days, like there's still days. It got better with the conference that that we attended, right? That Rick Kahood planned, right? So I could hear other people thinking the same thoughts. why did I get into this? You know, so there are days, there are many days like that. But then, seeing the plants growing an inch by inch, a centimeter by centimeter, that gives you hope. Okay, and then also I believe in general goodness of people. People generally are good. You know, and then seriously out of I think we must have met like 10,000 people last year. At the farmers market. You know, I couldn't find any single instance where people were rude to us. Or telling okay, we don't want to buy from you, all the things, right?
So
Yeah.
when you walk into the greenhouse, you've got a whole greenhouse full of green plants right now, and they're just growing up. And your tomatoes, I'm not even seeing your plants, but I know what's going on because I
Yeah,
did it for so many years. So your tomatoes, I'm sure, are flowering right now, and things are coming along. The cucumbers are probably looking great. So how do you feel when you walk in the doors when it's quiet at the end of the day, no one's in there, and you walk in and you've got all these green things growing, and you've got tomatoes, especially in the later in the season when you've got tomatoes hanging there and peppers hanging there and cucumbers hanging there, and you've just got this whole room full of thousands of pounds of food. How does that make you feel? What does that do to your heart and soul?
well, it enriches the soul. It makes you happy. It feels like magic sometimes. And then I don't know, like the moment I enter the door, there's a higher humidity in the greenhouse, for a reason, right? And its temperatures are generally higher, early mornings, right? I'm talking about, and boiler is running, so there's a good smell when you walk in between the rows of tomatoes, like the smell that emit the moment you touch them, oh my God, I love that smell, you can never get tired of it. Doesn't matter, how many times we go there. Um, and then there's a lot of satisfaction in doing whatever work you're doing, So even if it's like the singing and everything, right? Singing or pruning, which you're teaching us, right? So for example, day before yesterday, I was singing along with Joe, my wife, and then I was just putting on some songs, just going about the rhythm of it. She's much faster than me. I'm slow, and then it gives a very satisfying feeling. I don't know, satisfaction, internal satisfaction that you're doing something good, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it is hard. It's tough to take a little plant and get production out of it. That's a tough thing. And so you should be so proud of yourself that you've got all these plants in the greenhouse and they're green and they're thriving and they're surviving and you're producing food. And what is the backbone of human life? I mean, we need just some small, simple little things. We need shelter, we need water, and we need food. And you have food and you have good tasting food. I know because I'm proud of
Same
I'm
theme.
proud of
Yeah.
the legacy that I left, right? Like I did it well for so many years and I loved it. And the tomatoes, like I still get called the tomato lady because the tomatoes that you grow in that greenhouse are sweeter than any other tomato in the province of Alberta. And it's just not the same. And you are the farmer who is growing them and nurturing them and paying, let's get into some of this, paying the natural gas bill, paying the labor bill, paying for the plants, paying for the fertilizer, paying for all the input costs to raise those tomatoes up, to pick them, to package them and bring them directly to the customer at the farmer's market. And, you've got to be very proud of that process. And, you know, hold your head up high that you are a farmer. You are doing it and you are grinding and you are working. And yeah, be proud of yourself.
Being there actually, right? I couldn't have done this without you last year, I can also there's some credit due to Bobby as well, right? She helped us get off the start, right? But again, unfortunately, we I think Don, we could not match even I think 2/3 of the sales that you did, So if you made
Mm.
$100, we didn't even make we did not even make 65 actually, to be honest,
So
Yeah,
why do you think that is? Why why
I don't
why
know.
is that? Because that makes me sad. That breaks my heart. Why do you think your sales were lower?
We didn't know many things, right? In the beginning, we were very shy, very, very shy, We'd actually, you told us, not to do it, but we actually standing behind the counter, not offering samples, Or if we were offering samples, we were just scared, going. you want some, and how people will react to it. And social media was one thing, like, I even to till date, like, Don, like, seriously, every single day we're working, at least 10 hours, okay? Even when the greenhouse was shut down in November, right? November, December, January, February, March, right? Um, we didn't take a day off. There was always something to do at the farm, right? But like, as you mentioned, like, we should be more vocal, more transparent, you know, about what we do, put it on social media, maybe one post, if not every day, maybe 2 or 3 posts a week. So maybe that was the reason, like, nobody could resonate with us. That, and don't get me wrong, but there are people like, who do reselling, right? So maybe people were of the belief that we change our philosophy. We did not actually. So Shirley's philosophy, your philosophy. So so maybe it's getting out there and, like, showing your flaws and your good points, bad points, everything. So I will heed to your request. I will, whatever you inform. Like, for example, Instagram can do, like, that the subtitles, right? Like the transcription automatically, right? So we'll go into those things. We'll use social media more. We take a lot of pictures, and we all say, today we're gonna post. Today we're gonna post. We never get to it. So I think not being out there, that is one reason. And then our tomatoes became bad, Don. So because the roofs had there were 4 roofs that had blew off. So the temperatures were going up and down, and in the night time they became too cold. So the skin of the tomatoes started cracking, you know. So they had
Mm.
concentric circles as if they were grown outside. But again, we never used anything. And when we went to the markets, we discounted them. We told people, like, there's no pesticide. This is what happened to the greenhouse. People still bought it. So in I think in the 3rd week of August and then September, when we do when you did generally lots of sales, right? We couldn't do so many sales because it, tomatoes were not looking good at all, you know.
Mm.
And then field, you already know, like, I think I would say 60 to 70% we lost. Like, potatoes were remaining in the ground. Um, yeah, and then just like new business owner, new farmer mistakes, right? Lots of mistakes that we made. Um, like our lettuce is like, the small greenhouse. It doesn't have automatic controls, right? So it became too hot. So they became more like Christmas trees. They were, remember, like, they were going tall, 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 tall. You know?
They bolted. Yeah.
Yeah. So those kind of things, and then we didn't have any farm animals, no eggs, nothing. Which even this time we're not doing, because that would be very overwhelming, you know. Um, yeah, I think all those factors played some role, into, and like, people didn't know us, right? So once people got to know us, like, your older customers, your old friends, I think they were more welcoming. They were more um trusting, you know, about us. I mean, yeah. So gradually it became better, but then, like, when we would have done our maximum sales, like, we didn't have a lot of produce. Our tomatoes, like, we always had very few bags to take to the market.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I always used to say you can't sell it if you don't have it, right? And so that's a tricky point, right? And so yeah, and I just want the listeners to hear that, you were brand new at farming, you were brand new at business, you were brand new at doing everything. You bit off more than you can chew. You're making yourself swallow it. And I think you should be proud of the year. I mean, yes, it was a hard year, but you should be proud of what you did. You actually produced food for people. And so you just got to take the positives and learn from the mistakes and carry on next year. I know, and that's the thing too. Like, I could tell you 50 mistakes, hundreds of mistakes, even into the last years that I was farming on that farm. I could tell you hundreds of mistakes that I made, and you just go with it. You do the best you can. You put your all into it. You put the work and the effort and the everything into it, and you just, you do the best you can, and that's all you can do as a human being. And so yeah, so let's chat about coming up into this year. What does things look like coming up into this year? How are you going to change? Well, how are you going to take what you learned last year and make changes this year? You talked about the social media, but how about for your plants, and how about for your customers, and how about for markets and different things? What's your plan this year going forward?
Plants, absolutely no change. same seeds, same fertilizer, same supplier, same everything, right? So we did some mistakes, like on the day, but when we pointed this out, like we had the wrong cocoa fiber bags, 3 holes, 2 holes, tomatoes were in the wrong spot, all those things. So we had to spend like 2 or maybe 2.5 days just to correct those things. So, but again, like plants, no change. Um, we have like some new varieties of tomatoes and peppers, Roma, for example, and there's a sharper variety like small sweet pepper that we want to grow. So some small quantities of new plants, but we're not changing the vegetables that we've already bringing to the market. You know, we may have some new varieties of lettuces that we want to bring. Um, yeah, so no changes like in that pricing. We're gonna keep the same. We in fact reduced the pricing for a few things last year, Don. Like people found and I think rightly so, that some of things are overpriced. So we brought the prices down. Like for example, cilantro, um, other items, parsley, right? And we started packing it with more of arugula and kale in the bags, and also the day tomato. And we will continue doing the same thing this year. What else? Technically change, technical, talking about technical things, that is what I'm more comfortable with. Plants, no change. Every single thing, the same. Same for the vegetable garden, the field produce, same for the greenhouse produce as well. For the technical things, I'm like, if it's okay, can I talk about those couple of things?
Can you talk about what? Sorry?
The technical things, like at the farm.
Yeah, you can talk about whatever you want to. This is your show.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we're spotlighting Shirley's greenhouse on today's episode. You can talk about you can share whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
Yeah. So so the roofs blew off last year because they were not properly inflated, and those small blower motors, they keep on blowing off. They keep on going off. It's very hard to keep on top of those 12 different blowers, right? So as you saw, like I installed one single blower, so that will supply now to all the roofs, and I have a standby blower as well. So that is one thing that will, like, it cannot. There's no guarantee, but most likely our roofs will not blow off this year. They will not fly off.
Right. And I can tell you, so we had those, I know exactly what you're talking about. So what you're talking about is we had individual blowers that blew air into the roof to blow it up like a bubble. And when plastic is really tight, it holds air and it doesn't blow. It actually, the wind bounces off of it. So what you did was you installed one central air duct to blow into all of the roofs instead of 20 different ones. And so that makes total sense to me. And most greenhouses, that's the thing, like, be proud of yourself, because most big greenhouses have that one central air duct, and we didn't. We just had old school, old farm, like blowers.
No, we have it too.
So
Yeah. And then and second thing, Don, I installed one shut-off valve on every single of those irrigation pipes. So now if there's some rows that are not being used, so we can shut it off. So because otherwise the water was going everywhere wherever it was not even needed, right? So those things, I already did that.
So you made your irrigation more efficient than when I had it. I love it. Like, that's amazing. But that's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying earlier in the episode, is what that greenhouse needed. That greenhouse needed someone like you to come in and just give it that TLC that I couldn't and that I didn't. Yeah.
You did many things that are so good, and I can't replicate those. But anyways, so next thing I'm gonna do, like some trays of sagging, Don, so when they're sagging, like the water, actually the leach water does not flow to the end. So if it doesn't flow to the end, it cannot get collected in that central tank. So so I'm gonna make approximately 300 jacks, manual jacks, and I will place them underneath the trays, so there can be proper slope on every single tray.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So I'm just going to explain it to our listeners. So in the north side of the greenhouse, I don't even have to be there, and I know exactly what you're talking about. In the north side of the greenhouse, some of those trays. So in the hydroponics, we had trays underneath the crop, and then you had your cocoa fiber bags on top, and your plants on top of that with a dripper in it. And in hydroponics, there's over drains, so you get extra water, and so you've got lots of drain water, which is quote unquote a waste of water. But on your farm, you collect that rainwater, that waste, or not that rainwater, the wastewater from the overdrain from the plants, and you put it into a different pond, and you send it out to your field crops. So important, so good. But on the north side of the greenhouse, the floor is a little bit sketchy. It's a little bit slopey. It's a little bit soft. And so the overdrain would just leach onto the floor and cause a big mess and cause, the pipes and everything. It was a little bit dangerous even. And so you're going to jack all those troughs up, make them slope properly, make them drain properly, make them fit properly, and give that greenhouse, the north side of that greenhouse, the TLC that I didn't give it for many, many years. Like, again, Pete, in many ways, you're a better farmer than I was.
No,
Yeah,
not a
you've
better
just
farmer.
got
I'm just a
the,
fixer,
you've got the, you've got the ingenuity, and you've got the, skill set to be able to do that. And I was like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I'm just being honest. Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Like, I give it to you. You did so many things, I'm repeating, I know, but like it's worth repeating. I cannot emulate. I cannot replicate those things I did. And then, and one last thing, but we just want to do better in sales. So this year, like, I spoke with Melissa, actually, your daughter, and then she also agreed to it. So we want to make some informational, like, posters, that show like how we grow, some simple small words, but so that we don't have to repeat, that come out like, in bold letters, behind our curtains, the walls, I mean, and then that are catchy, um, like I have also been toying with the idea of like, putting a self, like, declaration, you know, and I would want other, like, produce vendors to also write something similar if they can, to say like, I grow 90% or 95% of the food that I bring to this market. If there's 5 or 10% portion that is not grown by me on my farm, I'm actually labeling it that where did I bring it
Yes.
from, and I'm not
Yes.
bringing it from like, a big box store. I'm
Or a
bringing it
big
from
warehouse.
a big warehouse. I'm looking to bring from a local farmer, or if like some cousin of mine, or whoever.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I used to stand at farmers markets, and because we're different people personality wise, I used to stand at farmers markets and I would say, I'm the farmer. I grew this. I didn't buy and sell this. And the customers would walk past and they'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, some people buy and sell produce to sell at farmers markets, quote unquote, farmers markets. And I would say, I grew this produce. Like, and that's the thing, liar, liar, pants on fire. And so I always told my customers too, it's my job to tell you the truth and your job to make informed decisions. And yeah, like, it's so important. And I ran my farm. When I had the farm, I ran it with ethics and morals and upstanding, and that's just who I was, who I am, and what I did. It's so important. And at the end of the day, that holds more weight. Who you are as a person, who you are as a farmer, who you are on the inside, like, that holds more weight as a human being one day, than anything else. And so I think that's great. And you know what? I have to thank you too for employing my daughters this year. They are so looking forward to doing the markets for you. And they talk about it all the time, because I live with my daughters, and they are Shirley's granddaughters. And you're gonna, like, it's just like the legacy is continuing on. Yes, there's been pain in my heart, with selling the farm and things like that. But I am so proud that my daughters can work with you as a team and be on your team and be on the team to carry on my mom's legacy. And that's pretty cool. So thank you for hiring my daughters. Thank you for employing them. And my daughters, they talk about it all the time, and they want to do the best they can for you. Like, they already talk about, we want to make good sales, and we want to get sales like this, and we want to do this, and they want to do their best by you. And so yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Thanks for having the confidence, the trust in me, not only from yourself, but from your daughters as well, Melissa, Tia, and Danny.
Yeah.
We are looking forward to them, coming back to the farm, And as I mentioned to them, all the time, every single time I see them, um, they should still feel like it's their own farm. I don't want to take that, away from them, because somebody took that away from me long time ago. I don't want that to happen to anybody.
Yeah, no, and that's just it. And even my middle daughter, she's going to chat with you at some point too about a couple of things. And yeah, they even my daughters, they want what's best for you, and they want to help you. They want to see you thrive and succeed, and that's what we all want for you. And so we are your biggest fans and your biggest supporters of Shirley's greenhouse. How can we not be, right? It's our family heritage. Yeah. So,
I
okay.
will, I will keep
Cool.
that greeting card. And I will keep that greeting card you guys brought, forever. Doesn't matter, how this farm fares, uh, but that greeting card, it's a gift that I will keep forever, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's team and it's more of the community, right? It's carrying it on and picking it up and just carrying on the legacy and carrying on farming and agriculture. And that's what it is, like you're growing food for people, and it's just the teamwork between all of it and all levels of farming. And that's what farming communities are. I'm going to change the subject a little. I get a little squirrely once in a while on these podcasts, and we just did a fundraiser for my niece, and we raised she's had some medical issues here in Alberta, and she couldn't it was going to be a long wait time, and we won't get into the medical things here in Canada, but it was going to be a really long wait time, and she's getting some brain damage in the meantime. And so she's headed down to the States to get a surgery, and she's part of a farming community. Her family, like my sister's family, lives in a husband lives in a farming community, and that farming community pulled together, did a silent auction or a live auction, and they raised more than enough money to send my niece down to the States. And that's what we're missing in society now too, is that community portion of it where you help your friends and neighbors and you just look out for one another. And this community just came together behind this family and did what they had to do. And so I guess that's where my roots are, is pulling together with farming and with agriculture. And that's why I'm doing Don's Dirt even. That's why I even want to do on the podcast, is because I want to support the farmers. I am pro farmer. If you're a little farmer right up to a big farmer, if you are growing food and packaging it and selling it, I'm a supporter of yours. And so that's why we're here, is to support your farm. And so yeah, it's that community portion.
No, I feel that community sense of community as well, Don. So see, I have stayed in plenty of places. Okay, um, there was time we didn't have any home, no place to call our own, but eventually we did, right? So I stayed in in upstate New York. I stayed in downtown Toronto. I stayed in Calgary, in Edmonton, and now finally here, And then this is the very first time I feel connected to something. Okay, never in Toronto, never in Calgary or Edmonton did I have so many people I could speak with. And we were living next door to each other. Okay, believe me, right? In a city life. But here, I think I know almost every single neighbor that is around me. So so Denise's son-in-law, James, and Denise's daughter, Brittany, right? So they're very cool people. So he saw that the bucket that I had for the skid steer was not the best. He came and dropped another bucket with me, which has a cutting edge. So now I can level the ground, more easily. Like there was a farm truck, he just gave it to me. It's a dumper truck. So now we don't have to take the skid steer to take out all the plants. We can just put it in the dump truck and do one round of that compost pile. You know what I mean? You know.
Yeah,
So Rick goes,
I do.
Bruce, all these people. I don't want to take names, but uh, but everybody has been really good to me. I feel part
Yeah,
of the
and
community already. You know.
absolutely. And again, it warms my heart because you're naming my neighbors' names. Like those are the names that I was around. They are good human beings. They care about one another. They take care of one another. They help one another. Those same people that you just mentioned, they helped me many, many, many times, over the years, and vice versa. It went both ways. We did what we could do for them. And so yeah, yeah, that's the agricultural community. And so here you are, you're on the farm, you've bought the farm, you're doing the farm, and let's talk about your generations now. So you are on the farm with your wife, you've got your kids, and they help you on the farm, but you also have your parents there helping you. And so talk about that. How is that generational thing going for you? Like how special is that you can work as a family, as a team, and be part of, something bigger in a food system with your parents and with your children? Tell me how that is for you.
I'm happy I made that move. Like, coming from, like, we were living in Edmonton from 12 years, okay, and now we are here almost for a year now, more than a year, right? Kids are using less cell phones, less screens. We spend more quality time together. They're helping me fix things. They're helping their mom do the pruning and all. I'm talking about kids. Mom and dad, like, so dad, like, he basically handles the pumps and the pumping system. So making sure the irrigation tank is full, making sure that, the fertilizers are tanks are full and all that, right? And then mom, she takes care of weeding. She takes care of, like, packing sometimes, right? Or doing whatever it takes, right? Um, and, like, I have become I like, I knew zero about bookkeeping. Now I know, because we couldn't afford to keep Bobby, but, like, so I had to learn it myself. So everybody is doing something, and everybody is staying away from screens. Right? It's like, doing something that is actual work, not just, meaninglessly wasting your time. Um, we feel more connected as a family, actually, to be honest.
Love that. And there is something to be said for that. There is a meme sometimes I see on like Instagram and things like that, and it talks about the family farm and kids doing chores and things like that. And there was one where they were saying, well, when I had to do chores, I had to roll the garbage down to the end of the driveway. Whereas a farm kid, when they do chores, the farm depended on it. Like, if you don't do your chores, kid, like, we're going bankrupt. Like, that's just it. The stakes are so much higher in agriculture and in farming. And those kids, I think kids that are raised on a farm and get that, exposure and that work ethic and things like that. And my girls have it. My girls, I brought them to farmers markets. They work their little butts off, and they did it for the family farm. And so, yeah, they're better off for it. And people want to hire my children now because they have the work ethic, because they did work on a farm. There is something to be said about farm kids and chores, and farm kids and work ethic. And what a blessing that you can have your kids on the farm doing those things, and like you said, less screen time, because the family farm depends on it. Amazing. Yeah.
That is how it is. And this, like, I won't say like they're as good as, your daughters don't, like, in terms of, like, handling the chores and responsibilities, but they're getting there, step by step, inch by inch. They're getting there. Yeah.
Well, and kids are kids, right? I got in some fights with my kids too, like, I'm not saying my kids are perfect. My kids, actually, I do know this. My kids work better for other people than they did working for me, because, they, back talk and back sass to mom, but, for other people, they will grind. And I've heard it from other people. I've heard it from their teachers, but I've also heard it from their other employers. And even when I was growing up, so Ted was my dad, and I remember I worked for him and he fired me because, I was terrible. I know how to work and I can outwork most people, but yeah, I got fired from my dad because, I was a kid being a kid. And so, yeah, there's the family dynamic that way too. So, just in closing here, you're a brand new farmer, you bit off more than you can chew, you're fighting hard to swallow it. I want to encourage listeners and people to look up Shirley's Greenhouse, follow them on social media, go to the farmers markets if you're in the Calgary area and buy their produce. I bought your produce all the time last year. I love it. I have high standards and high expectations when it comes to produce, and your produce meets my standards. So that's what I want to eat. And so, just if anyone's listening and they're just getting into homesteading or they're just getting into farming, what's your words of wisdom after year one? What would you say to them? What would you
So,
say
like,
to yourself?
yeah.
What would you say to yourself a year ago?
I think, like, you should have like, if you want to get into it and make a living out of it, you should have a very strong level of self-awareness, which is like, know that like don't know, right? You know, so you should know like that the things that you just don't know and be open about it. You know, so when you're open, when you're not hiding things, when you're not deceitful, people will come and help you, like you did, and you're doing it, right? I'm not making it up like oh no, I know my tomato plants. No, I don't. You know, the same thing. How do I get the water from point A to point B? Yes, I know, right? So you should know your strengths, you should know your weaknesses, and you should be open about those things. And then take an assessment that, like, can you commit to it? You know, this is like farming is not for people, I would say, who are quitters. Okay, so if you have in you to, take on a path and remain committed, then only do it. Don't do not experiment.
Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for sharing. And look up Shirley's greenhouse if you're interested. And so, yeah, Shirley's greenhouse, my former farm. Thanks so much, Pete, for being here. Really appreciate your time today.